Welcome back to the Bullyball podcast, where we talk about the 49ers and their Bullyball style of play every single Sunday. We got a lot of news today. Every week the 49ers give us something more. The second media day of OTAs was this week. The big news, we had the end of an era. Legendary running back Frank Gore and I wouldn't say legendary, but great player Alex Mack both retire as 49ers. Well, Alex Mack, he retired, but played for the 49ers last year. We have a new Jimmy G rumor, Desean Jackson rumor, and we have a picture of the 49ers rookies, and somebody looks huge. And that's all I'll say for now. Let's jump right in to this podcast.
Tony Montana, Tony Montana, Tony Montana, check up on my ear. Tony Montana, Tony Montana, Tony Montana, I'm about to cut.
So I'm Joseph, and this is my co-host Alex. How's it going over in Spain today?
Going good. Got some good weather today. Just kicking back, barbecuing a little bit, going good.
Nice. We had a tropical storm out here this weekend, so it looks a little clear today, but Miami flooded. So
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, you saw the videos of the cars underwater.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Florida weather, man.
It's crazy over here. All right, so let's hop right in. Let's start with, the big thing. Alex Mack and Frank Gore retire as 49ers. So Frank Gore signed a one-day contract on Thursday to retire as a 49er. And, we started watching the 49ers in the early 2000s when we were young. And the one bright spot of the 49ers was always Frank Gore. So, give me your favorite Frank Gore moment growing up.
Man, I think the one moment for some reason that pops up into my head, it's not like it was a huge run or anything, but it was against the Bears and we were down at the goal line. And I think their linebacker, Lance Briggs, came on a blitz and Frank Gore was pass blocking and just decleated him. Like, it was an insane block. For some reason, that play always rings in my head whenever we think of Frank Gore.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. That play,
Yeah.
that play was hilarious. Just put him on his back, and the dude was probably like 30 to 50 pounds heavier than him, and just planted his
playing
ass.
like outside linebacker, I think, or something. And that, like I said, that play always rings in my head whenever we think of Frank Gore. For some reason, it's that play.
Probably one of the most underrated traits of a running back is pass blocking. That's why a lot of running backs don't get on the field in the NFL. And Frank Gore, probably one of the best ones to ever do it. So, glad they brought him back. He was always a 49er. It stung a little bit when they let him go, let him leave the team, and then he was a little journeyman for a while, but one of the most consistent NFL players ever, especially coming off of 2 ACL tears in college.
Do you think him being the journeyman at the end of his career is going to hinder his chances of making the Hall of Fame?
I do not think so. I'm pretty sure he still had 1,000-yard seasons, when he left the team. And another thing, I was watching a different podcast earlier this week. Did you know Frank Gore was the last 49er 1,000-yard rusher on the team?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily surprise me. We haven't been able to get good consistency lately. Here is that play. I want to show you guys, just in case you guys aren't aware of the play that we're talking about. Poor quality because somebody took it off their phone, off their TV. But Frank Gore, it's like a play action. He's right here. And boom. Just puts him on his ass. I don't know why. That play always just rings in my head. One more time. Boom. Just a crazy block. That play always number one.
Was that Isaac Sopaga playing fullback right there?
It says Tuku. I don't know who Tuku is.
I was gonna say because that's the only guy that I remember. But
With long hair like that.
yeah, Frank Gore, man, legend. Glad he retired with the team. We had Carlos Hyde come close, and Elijah Mitchell should have broke 1,000, but he got injured a couple games. So 49er legend. I think he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. I think first ballot, but you never know with how it goes nowadays.
So here's so that was going to be I know it's a big debate on whether Frank Gore will make the Hall of Fame or not. Here's the requirements from the actual Hall of Fame itself for a player to make it in. First, they have to be retired for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Second, they have to make at least a first team All-Pro team or All-Conference team, or make a Pro Bowl. So Frank Gore was never a first team All-Pro. Never made that in his career. I'm not sure about All-Conference, but he did make about 5 Pro Bowls, I think I saw. So he checks off that one. And then he must be officially nominated by anyone, and this includes fans or the player themselves. So obviously somebody's going to nominate him. And then it then goes to a board of 48 active media members, and they select which players make the Hall. And those media members, they pick one from each team. So like LA gets 2 since there's 2 teams in LA. New York gets 2 since there's 2 teams in New York. And then there's about, I think it said 16 or something other media members that are just active, like that cover NFL Network, ESPN, anything like that. So then they decide who actually makes it in. And somebody I saw talking earlier, they're like, for them at least, making the Hall of Fame should be, can you rewrite the history of the NFL with or without this player? So if you can rewrite it without the player, then should he be in the Hall of Fame? Or if you can rewrite it and like he has to be in there, then he should make the Hall of Fame. So that would be like, you can't rewrite the history of the NBA without Michael Jordan. Or you can't rewrite the history of the NFL without Jerry Rice. So I got a question for you. Could you rewrite the history of the NFL with or without Frank Gore?
It's hard to say because the 49ers never would have made that Super Bowl or those runs to the NFC championships without him. But it sucks because the 49ers were just so bad for so long. Like, I pulled up his stats. His best year was his second year in the league on that terrible 49er team in 2006. He had just under 1,700 yards rushing, 8 TDs, and he had 485 yards receiving and 1 touchdown, which totaled 2,180 yards that year. And he wasn't all pro. But that goes to say, he played for a terrible team. Probably should have been an all pro that year. After that year, he had 1,500 total yards. The next year, 1,400, 1,500, 13, 13, 15, 12 and a half, 12 and a half, 12 and a half, 13, 1,200. Like, the dude is consistently great, and I think underrated because, there are backs that may be more flashy, the way they get yards, but nobody is as consistent as Frank Gore was. And then his last 3 years in the league, he had 800 yards total, 700 yards total. So those 3 years of journeyman from Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets kind of hurt him. But even his 3 years on the Colts after the 49ers, over 1,000 yards every single year. Let's see, Pro Bowls, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5.
So looking up who made the All-Pro teams in that 2006 year, which was his best year, you said, the 2 running backs that made it were LaDainian Tomlinson, who was the MVP of the league that year, and Larry Johnson. So LT had 1,800 yards rushing and 28 rushing touchdowns.
That's
And
insane.
then Larry Johnson had 1,700 yards rushing with 17 rushing touchdowns. Steven Jackson was another one that was up there he didn't get it, but him and Frank Gore were like the secondary people. Steven Jackson for the Rams, he had 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns. And then Frank Gore had 1,695 yards, but only 8 touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns. So I think
But
that's what probably hurt him the most was the low
he
number of
had
rushing touchdowns.
he had almost 500 yards receiving though.
To be fair, LT had 508 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. Larry Johnson had 410 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Steven Jackson had 806 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And then Gore had 485 and 1 touchdown. So all the backs that year were just going off, having crazy years, receiving and rushing. So
And it
that was
just
just a
goes to
bad
show
year.
Frank Gore probably was on the worst team. Frank Gore never had an O-line until those deep playoff runs. So, I think he makes it. Maybe he doesn't make it first ballot, but I think he ends up making it, and he deserves it.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely make it too, given that Bryant Young made it this last year. I think Gore should definitely make it. If Bryant Young's making it, not saying he was a bad player or whatever, but I know a lot of people were like shocked when that came out. So I think Frank Gore will make it. Fun fact about that 2006 season, 49ers defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans was the defensive rookie of the year that year. So that's a little fun fact, interesting.
Was a great player.
Yeah.
Definitely was.
So back to I think you kind of pigeon-footed around my question though. Could you rewrite the history of the NFL with or without Frank Gore?
I mean, I guess you could say both ways. You could if you take him out. Sorry, I got to check in for a flight in like 10 minutes. I had to set an alarm. But if you could say both ways, because if Frank Gore was not on the 49ers, the 49ers are not good for any of those years. But then you could also say he didn't carry them to the Super Bowl win. But at the same time, it wasn't his choice to throw the ball 3 times to Crabtree when you're on like the 3 or 5 yard line or whatever it was. So whose fault is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could see both ways.
I agree. I think we're a little biased as Niner fans just because growing up, like we said, Frank Gore was like the only bright spot of the team for a few years. So we always saw him as like that great player because the whole quality of the team was bad. So yeah.
So
I think you want to make it as well eventually.
let's hop over to Alex Mack. Restructured his deal, gave him a little bit of money because they knew he was going to retire. I think we said last pod, we're like, yeah, he's retiring. I'm pretty sure. Check us if you're watching and you heard us. I don't remember. But he did retire. He had a great career in the league. He was, I believe, 7-time Pro Bowler. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 7. Yeah, 7-time Pro Bowler. Was a Pro Bowler for the 49ers this last year. Great career, but that leaves another hole on the offensive line for the 49ers. And do you think the 49ers knew it was coming because they didn't address the center position in the offseason? So do you believe they knew, or do you think they really thought like, yeah, he's probably coming back. We don't need to address it this year?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, like we said, if they would have drafted Donovan West in the 3rd round, I feel like everybody would be like, oh, yeah, they addressed the center position. But since they got him undrafted, that they're like, oh, we didn't address it at all. I'm not too sure about the team internally I think at first they probably thought he was coming back, but towards the end, they definitely like when he was still overseas and everything, I think that's when they started to realize like, oh shoot, he's not coming back. So I think that's when it actually hit them.
So what do you think the plans are moving forward? Do you think, Jake Brendel's going to run with it? And, he was been a practice squad guy his whole career, but he has been in the league. He's 30. So he's been in the league for a long time. Whether that's a good thing, he's been around. The dude taking second team reps right now is I believe Keaton Sutherland. I've never heard of him, but he's taking almost all the second team center reps. What do you think is going to happen going forward?
I think they will. Just seeing how the Niners have operated in the past, I think they will run it with Brendel, because I know J.C. Treader is a popular name that a lot of Niner fans want the team to sign, but the Niners really haven't been known to like make those bigger moves late in the offseason and stuff. So I really don't see that happening. And we don't have a bunch of cap space already, especially after we just signed the rookie class. So I think we'll run it with Brendel. And we touched upon it like a few pods ago that Brendel does have the chemistry with Trey Lance, because Brendel was the second team center last year. Who was the second team quarterback? Trey Lance. So they do have that chemistry together. And I heard he was pretty good like during the practices and stuff. So as long as he's serviceable, I think we'll run it with Brendel this year for sure.
And with that being said, the Alex Mack retirement and restructure did allow all of the rookies to be signed. So all the rookies are on their rookie deals now, signed. A lot of them missed one of the OTA practice that was open. Somebody thought it might have been the contract issue. Who knows? But they are all signed now. And I agree. I think it's Brendel's job to lose. He's going to start there. Once, pads come on, he's the guy. If he ain't showing it, somebody else can win the job. And I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, Donovan West is the sleeper coming for the job. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not being biased either. Just because we had Jason Poe on the podcast, I'm not being biased. But in all the video clips and everything, and this is without pads, everyone says the Jason Poe sizing is crazy. He's barely shorter than Donovan West. And when they're doing their drills, Jason Poe's moving people, and he has that speed. If he could, and he also has the strength, we know. If he can use his low build to get leverage on the big guys, he could be good to go. I think Jason Poe really has a chance to beat out Donovan West for a spot on either the practice squad or on the team.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was going to say I think he'd be more of like a practice squad player this year, just because he hasn't played a lot of center. He's not used to really snapping that ball and having to find his blocks and stuff. So I think I could see a practice squad kind of learn that playbook, because it's been rumored that the 49ers centers make a lot of the play calls, like the block sets and everything like that. So I could see like a practice squad, let him get acclimated to the position, acclimated to the playbook, and then next year maybe actually start challenging for a starting spot at center or something like that.
One of the things that I saw, and it kind of confirmed for me what I saw on tape, is Donovan West ran a 5.29 or something 40 at the combine. And that I just heard about that this past week, and that confirmed what I saw on tape. Because remember, I said, I don't see that like explosiveness that everyone's saying on these like draft reports. And you look at Poe with that 4.89 unofficial at the Georgia Pro Day, but I think if there's a guy you're going to develop at the center position, I'm taking Poe over West at this point, just because of what I see in the practices, what I've seen on film. So that's one of the upsets I'm looking at in camp.
Yep. It'll be interesting. It'll be fun to watch all of those battles go on this year. So stay tuned for the camp reports.
So we had the second open OTA practice for the 49ers this past week. And so I took some notes of what people were saying they saw coming out of the practice. Ray Mccloud looks legit. He looks like a legit starting slot receiver. That's what everyone's saying. So, when we did our hot take podcast, that was my bust of the team. As of right now, it looks like he's going to prove me wrong. He had a lot of receptions last year, played kick, punt returner, but the fumbles, that was the thing. We'll see if that creeps up on him, but everyone was saying his hands look legit, catching the ball away from his body, over the middle. You think Ray has a legit shot to start at the slot position on this team?
I mean, it'll be interesting because he does have the build, but if anybody watching this has played football before in their lives, no matter if it was high school, college, whatever, even not high school before, you always have those players that are like the summer all-stars, sort of say. Without the pads, look amazing. These dudes look amazing. Like you would think, oh, when they put the pads on, they're going to be beasts. But then when pads actually come on, they're slower, they're not athletic, struggling with fumbles. You're not going to see that without pads. Once the pads come on and people are hitting at the ball and just tackling you in general, that's when you're going to start seeing that stuff. So I'm not taking too much off of this reports that he's looking great right now. Let's wait for the pads and then we'll really jump to conclusions then.
With that being said, another wide receiver on the team, they're saying Brandon Ayuk is struggling hard in these OTAs right now. I think this last practice they said they threw him 5 balls or 4 balls. He caught 1. He had a clear drop, wasn't creating separation, doesn't look fast or twitchy, looks a little heavy. What do you take out of these reports of Brandon Ayuk struggling right now, especially after being in the doghouse last season?
Kind of like the same thing that goes for McLeod. Ayuk's never, I mean, at least to the top, at like top of my head, Ayuk's never been known to have problems catching the ball, right? Like in the regular season, everything has been good.
Yeah, he
So
has.
him
He had a
drop,
couple last season. He had a couple like drops,
yeah,
but normally, when it's a contested ball and everything, he's snagging them.
yeah. So I'm not too concerned with it. It is OTAs. Not everybody's taking it too seriously. Like I was listening to Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and it has the Tennessee Titans Taylor Lewan. He's a tackle, then Will Compton. And they talk about OTAs a little bit, how it is for them. And they're like, yeah, everybody's like playing golf after practice, or like everybody's joking around, this, that, the other. So I think that goes to show like everybody's not really taking it too seriously in OTAs. I think this is kind of more of like a getting up to speed with conditioning and that type of stuff. So I'm not overly concerned with Ayuk struggling this week.
Do you think though, because some people are saying that's why he was in the doghouse last year, is not running routes full speed in practice, not going full go. Do you think Shanahan's watching him right now, like, hey man, get in gear? You think, like you said, it's just ramping up, getting ready to go.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to know what Shanahan's thinking. I would say he's probably not too overly concerned. If this carries over into training camp, then I think is time to kind of hit the panic button a little bit on Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. Once mandatory mini camp, training camp, all this stuff rolls around, I think he's going to be good to go. That takes us to another offensive position player. And it's kind of reminiscent of last year. You get into camp and you hear, hey, this 6th-round running back, Elijah Mitchell, looks explosive. He looks like he's the guy right now in camp. Didn't hear much about Trey Sermon. And then this year rolls around, and now you're hearing, hey, this undrafted guy, Jordan Mason, looks like the best running back in camp right now. And you're not hearing much about Ty Davis Price. So how do you feel about those reports that he looks like a legit guy catching the ball out of the backfield, and he looks explosive running the ball right now?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Mason ended up being better than Ty Davis Price, just because the way that the Niners have worked these last few years with their running backs. Like last year, like you said, Eli Mitchell was the late pick, and then Trey Sermon was the earlier pick, and then Eli Mitchell outplays Trey Sermon. But at the same time, Ty Davis Price is a physical running back. He's a downhill runner that's going to punish you when he has the ball. So obviously he's not going to look the greatest right now without these pads on. So once the pads come on, then we'll really see Ty Davis Price skill set emphasized the most is when the pads come on. So, but also, like I said, I still wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Mason was still really good too, because we both liked him looking at his tape and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be an interesting battle. Obviously, running backs, you have a lot of injuries, so an injury may clear a spot for somebody. But at the moment, Trey Sermon was taking first team reps in this practice that was open, and people were like, "It don't look good, man." I still have hope for the guy, but we'll see what happens. We've said we need to upgrade the pass catching third down back. Maybe that's Jordan Mason. Who knows?
Yep. Go take a look at our Hot Takes podcast that we did a couple ones ago, and Joseph has a spicy take on Trey Sermon for this upcoming year.
Yeah, and he's not doing me right now. Oh, good. I checked into my flight for tomorrow. Got Group A, position 41. So looks good to me. Sounds good. All right. And with that being said, let's talk about Talanoa Hufanga. They're saying, hey, this dude looks legit. Like, who's Jaquiski Tart, man? Because Hufanga looks like the guy. And we know every 49er fan has been worried this offseason about what are they going to do opposite of Jimmy Ward. And Jimmy Ward is actually the guy, him and D'Amico Ryans are the people praising Talanoa Hufanga. And they said, hey, this dude looks legit. Do you think someone could have that much growth in one season?
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. If you really look at what you struggled at last year with some decent playing time, I think it's definitely possible that you can have that growth. Yeah, Jimmy Ward's really endorsing Hufanga too. He had a mic'd up, Jimmy Ward did, and he was like, "Oh, we're the best duo in the league," or something like that. So he's really pushing that out there. Something that's interesting too to me is Jimmy Ward is going on year 10, which is insane because I remember when the Niners drafted him, and it's year 10 already. Like the most tenured 49er that is still on the team is Jimmy Ward. So I think that's a crazy stat.
It is. And he's developed, Coming into the league, he was a safety, and the 49ers tried to play him a nickel because he was a smaller guy. Nickel and outside, I think, at one point. But, he struggled, and people were saying, hey, this dude's a bust. Like, get him off the damn team. And, he's become one of the best safeties in the league. I'd like to see him at this point, get more turnovers, become that complete package. And that's one thing Talanoa Hufanga in college, he won Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year is the season he came out. And if you go watch, the highlights, even though people don't like highlights, the dude is a playmaker. If he learned from Jimmy Ward, the coverage ability, he may not be the fastest guy, but you don't technically have to be fast to play safety. You just need to have the instincts and get where you need to go before the other person gets there. And if Jimmy Ward's been teaching him, he has that playmaking ability. We'll see what happens. But yeah, high praise for Hufanga. It's his job to lose. So we'll see what happens. Did you have any other takeaways from that OTA practice? That's all I really had.
Yeah, not really. I think the main thing coming out of that is just let's not get too crazy on these OTA reports. Let's wait for the pads to actually come on, and then we can start making some conclusions about who's going to show up this year and who's not. So
Exactly. So next up we have the Jimmy G rumor that is spreading now. I believe it's from Panther beat reporter. Don't know if he has any actual like sources or insight, but the Panthers don't want Jimmy G because of the money. They don't want to pay him 26 mil. And that's the big deterrent that they're saying is why they won't trade for Jimmy G and why they would rather trade for Baker Mayfield, who has, I believe, a $17 million cap hit. What do you think about that rumor?
yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, really. I mean, I guess it comes down to how much more of a talent gap and how much more do you think Jimmy G is going to do for you compared to Baker Mayfield? Do you think he's worth that extra 10 or 11 mil, or do you think they're pretty similar? Maybe Jimmy G has a small foot up on Baker, but not like enough. So it doesn't surprise me because I wouldn't want to pay Jimmy G his contract that he's due right now either. I think that's a big part of why the Niners, well, that is probably the biggest part of why the Niners are trying to get rid of him, along that we have Trey Lance as well. But the money, I think everybody kind of knew it was always going to be an issue one way or another.
And another thing that was said in that report is they don't want to pay him that much money because he also comes with the injury risk. He's not recovered. He always gets injured. We don't want to pay a guy 26 mil to come here and then not play a full season for us. So if you were the 49ers, would you take, let's say you cover half of that hit, 13 mil, to trade him away? Would you do that? Say you pay 13 mil, you get a third round pick, and they get Jimmy G and they pay half, 13 mil.
For a third, coming from the Panthers, with Jimmy G, they'll probably be like a middle of the pack team, I would say. So you're looking at a mid third round pick, and we're keeping 13 mil.
So
I
you're
would do
clearing
it.
13 mil, but if you cut them, you clear 25 or 26 mil. So
I would do it, right. I would probably do it because we're already so late in the offseason that you're not really going to get anybody signing wise. You're going to save money that you can use towards Debo and Bosa's contract, but I feel like they already have that scheduled out and everything. So saving that money isn't really going to affect much. So I would do it, even if you have to pay half of it.
I would probably do it. It would suck, but I would probably do it as well. Um, Jimmy G's supposed to be getting healthy by the end of this month, so hopefully we start seeing some videos of him throwing the ball or something because we need that man gone. One more interesting rumor, and then I have some pictures I want to bring up, but there's a rumor going around, it might be fake, might be real, that the 49ers are thinking about kicking the tires on Desean Jackson. He's in the back end of his career. Every once in a while, you'll see, oh, he burned the defense again, but, he's not the player he once was. What do you think about this rumor? Because I have three things that this rumor tells me if it's true.
At first, I was like, yeah, why not? But now thinking about it, no. Because if you do, what's the point of Danny Gray? Danny Gray's going to be that speedster guy for us that takes the top off the defense. So if you bring in Desean Jackson, I'm guessing that's probably one of the things that it's telling you is that Danny Gray's not looking too good or something related to that. Because literally that's all Desean Jackson would be like the Travis Benjamin type player last year, just to take the top off to kind of threaten the defense, even if he's not just running like a vert or a go or something, You have that in Danny Gray now. You have that speedster that you can at least just throw out there and just pose a threat to the defense of the possibility of going deep on them. And Danny Gray's young too. Why throw money at an old vet when you have a young guy, young rookie just waiting there? So it's going to be a no for me.
Yeah, and that's one of my three things is if you bring in Desean Jackson, you don't think Danny Gray's ready. Bringing in Desean Jackson, though, to mentor Danny Gray is intriguing because if you could teach the young guy the intricacies of being a deep threat from one of the best deep threats to ever play in the NFL, that's a positive. But at the same time, not a good look. The second thing is it tells me you're not really liking the receiving room, and we think the receiving room is deep right now. That tells me you don't think Jawan, Ray Mccloud, the two vets, who is it, Malik Turner, and the other guy they brought in, I forget his name, telling me they probably aren't looking good. And third thing is Desean Jackson's he gets injured a lot. Who you gonna bring him in, and then what if he gets hurt? Oh, and the last thing is it confirms that this team is trying to take deep shots. If you bring in one of the best deep threats of his era, it tells me you're looking to throw the ball deep with Trey Lance, no matter what. So, the positives and negatives of it, probably going to be like a very cheap deal. Maybe you bring him in, see if he even makes a team. Who knows?
Yeah, I would still say no. I mean, the mentorship thing would be interesting, but Travis Benjamin was also a pretty successful deep threat early on in his career with the Browns. So I feel like, I would pass. Give Danny Gray that shot for sure.
Yep. So I have a picture of all the rookies, the 49er rookies that Jason Poe posted on his Twitter account. Let me make this thing bigger. Hold on.
Yeah, this picture is definitely interesting. I know we talked
Can you
about
see
it a
everybody
little bit.
on there?
Yep.
So can you see my mouse?
Yep.
All right. So this is all of the 49ers drafted and undrafted rookies. And when he posted this, I was like, God damn. You see Drake Jackson over here on the left. The dude looks huge. He looks massive. And we knew when the 49ers drafted Drake Jackson that they would probably want him to bulk up back to like his freshman year size, right? They said he was like 275 his freshman year, which was probably his best year at USC. He was about 250 at the combine. But as you can see right here, he looks like the biggest player here.
If you go, next to him's Kalia Davis, right?
Kalia Davis is right here with this like jersey thing on. Kalia Davis is 310 pounds. And then this guy right here is Kevin Atkins, D tackle. He is said to be between 300 and 315 pounds. And Drake Jackson looks bigger than both of them. So the dude, they bulked him up. I hope and pray that they are not trying to make him an inside player like they did with play out of position like they did with Eric Armstead and Solomon Thomas. He's an edge guy. Get him to 275 so he could, hold the edge, not get pushed around, but around 270 to 280 is probably good. What do you think?
And the thing as well was Drake Jackson in college was known for his speed, being a speed rusher, having that bend off the edge. So you put him inside, that's not what he's known for. That's not like his type of play. He does look huge, maybe it's just the clothes or baggy or something, but he definitely does look stocky. Like he looks very broad compared to those other two dudes. Maybe that's just the NFL weight room, you just put on muscle and he's still going to play the edge. But the Niners do always preach versatility on that D-line, inside, outside versatility. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do try to throw him inside. Hopefully it's not a lot, like primarily inside, but we'll see.
Yep. And then one other thing I wanted to note here. Let me try to zoom in. Can you see the zoom in?
Yep.
Who is this dude right here? This dude jacked. He's jacked as hell. This dude looked like he's the damn Hulk out here on the 49ers.
Yeah, that might be that McCray Ball linebacker. Let me look.
Or that Shagun Alubi from San Diego State.
Yes, maybe. Let's see. I'm trying to Marcelino McCray Ball. See if we can get pull up a headshot of him. Let's see. Can you zoom in back on him real quick? Yep, I'm pretty sure that's McCray Ball, the linebacker from Indiana. 6 foot, 214. I'm like 99% sure that's him based off of the Niners headshot. You want to pull that down and I'll share my screen of his headshot real quick.
Yeah, let me.
All right. So here is his headshot right there. So I'm pretty sure that's him.
That's him.
Because that fucker's huge.
Yeah, I don't know if the dude's any good, but he definitely has the size to play a linebacker. So I wanted to show that picture, and then I had one more to pull up. Hold on here 1 second.
Yeah, so the Niners definitely drafted players with size. Drake Jackson looking huge at the edge, and then him looking huge at linebacker.
So as you can see here, this is the average RAS score, which is the relative athletic score, or raw athletic score, sorry, of every team's draft pick since 2015. And as we know, the John Lynch Shanahan era started in 2017, but the 49ers RAS scores had to be high in 2015 and 16 because we know Trent Baalke didn't care about production. He drafted the most athletic people he possibly could. So, you see the 49ers here towards the bottom, which I thought was interesting because we usually think the 49ers bring in athletic people, right? But this shows the opposite, which isn't a bad thing because as you can see, you got the Rams, you got the Bills, the Browns, Titans. These are all teams top teams, very athletic players and everything. So I thought this was interesting. The 49ers with the new with John Lynch, they have the safer players, the Senior Bowl guys. They played in the league, they played in college a long time. Just interesting to see. What do you think about this chart?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because, like you said, we like to go for size. At least we thought, or not for size for athletes like the Jason Poe. But I think another example of not taking just like the athlete was the Niners taking Debo over DK. Because DK was that athlete that everybody was like, oh my God, he's 6 whatever, running a 4.3, whatever his 40 was, like some crazy number. And then the Niners go with Debo over DK. So I think that's another example of kind of taking a player that's, like you said, a little bit more seasoned in college compared to just a raw athlete type dude.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. And I mean, I think this year's draft kind of is the emphasis of this because, like, you look at Nick Zakel. I think he had a decent RAS score, but you look at like Sam Womack, he's kind of a smaller dude, You look at Spencer Burford, he wasn't a very high on the RAS score. Ty Davis Price, So this year kind of emphasizes that. And it's just interesting to see it. I don't really think it has any say on whether your team's good or not. Obviously, you have like the Packers. Only reason they're really always good is because Rodgers. Saints always have a ton of athletes on the team. Eagles, not really ever a good team besides that Super Bowl year. Chiefs, they are a very athletic team. But there's some bad teams up here, the Falcons, Giants, and there's some really good teams at the bottom. So just an interesting chart I wanted to bring up, let the people see. Don't really think it has any bearing on whether you're a good or bad team. Just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely something to look for. Kind of crazy. Switches up your mindset a little bit, but
so, that's all I got for this episode. You got anything else?
just stay tuned. We're going to put out some good content here in the future. Take a look at our last few podcasts. They were good ones as well. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 100. Finally broke 50. I think we're at 55 right
55,
now.
55, so, yeah, we're growing pretty good.
Yep.
Thank you to everyone that's been subscribing and watching. Keep tuning in, we want to hit 100 subs before the first regular season game. And we would love for you guys to join us, help grow the Bullyball podcast, and tune in, share with your friends.
Yep. Like I said, we're trying to get some good guests to come on and everything. So stay tuned, subscribe, hit the notification bell for when our videos come out, and just one more step closer to the NFL season, one more step closer to 49ers football. So we'll get there eventually.
And we like doing live streams, but we want more people to join us on these live streams. So the more subs we have, the more motivation we have to do live streams and get you guys on the channel and talk, get your thoughts out there. So like we said, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know our content's coming out. And if you have any suggestions, some we could do better or some we should talk about, drop them in the comments. We're always looking for feedback.
Yep. All righty. That's it from us. See you guys next week.
All right. See you guys next time. Peace out.
Turn it back. Money.